Hello, listeners. Good day, all of you. I hope you are enjoying your week. You are welcome to my Liberation Gospel. I am Ukachukwu Okorie. I thank you for joining me today, and I pray that my Father in heaven shall bless us and give us more wisdom and understanding, so that whatever we have picked today shall be used in progressing the cause of humanity and to the greater glory of his name, the true Christ our Lord. Thank you for joining me today. I said I'm going to, since I resurrected my talk series, Liberation Gospel, I've been taking it gradually. The momentum is beginning, and I'm relishing this effort, and this is what I like doing. It's equally helping me to learn more and to contribute to this new age of mass awakening among our people, because they say ignorance it's a big disease, and knowledge is not only by going to school or spending many years in the university or polytechnic or college of education. You can teach yourself, and listenership is equally is a tool of knowledge. Is an aspect of knowledge. So today I want to talk about Ekumeku movement. The Ekumeku movement, I call it the Ekumeku movement versus campus cultism in contemporary Igbo society. And sorry, I thought I should have said this Igbo society, call it the Biafran society. I'm going to amend it now. But when I talk about the Igbo society as a historian and as a researcher, many of you may want to argue with me, but it's up to you. That's why it's good to be a scholar and research. Most of the most of these societies or the nations or tribes today around the what we know today as the South are all Igboid societies, but because of the political correctness, should I say, because of colonial rule and neo-colonial approach in today's Nigeria, a lot has been done, and there's identity crisis among the people. I said it in one of my talks, and in subsequent edition, I'm going to put to the sword many of these conspiracies and fallacies that we carry all around. I have talked about the new Calabar, and most of the riverine areas as Igboid communities, because the slavery, if you remember the slavery, you will get to know what I'm talking about, but let me not digress. I want to talk about Ekumeku movement and campus cultism. And when you talk about cult is a very big, is a wide scope of subjects. If we start talking about it, I think my people will say Chigeji, Chigabo. Sorry, there's a so dark. There's a comment. It's an audio. I'm not appearing, so that's why it's dark. It's just an audio. I know many viewers love to see, but in subsequent edition, I'm going to maybe start appearing. But for now, I'm comfortable with the audio podcast. So, Ekumeku. What do we understand by Ekumeku? In preamble to this, I released something on this wall a few days ago about the Ekumeku movement. Ekumeku movement, many scholars have been talking about the mopping up of communities or nations or tribes around the River Niger and the River Benue that later formed to what we know today as Nigeria. And the movement called Ekumeku, they've not been brought to limelight as a result of some of the distortions in our history. But I said I'm going to, in the next 1 hour, I'm going to put it at head on, put it at daggers drawn with cultism in campus. I decided to narrow cultism in Nigerian campus, or let me say Biafran campuses today, because of the wide scope of cult societies in Nigeria, in Igbo land. In Igbo land, there are many things are involved in cultism. In rural communities, you talk about the Mmanwu process. There are many scope of our fabric of life that involve cultism. There's cultism on the economic front, on the socio-cultural aspect of on our way of life. And why I brought up Ekumeku movement. This Ekumeku movement came about at the turn of the 19th century, when the British came to the Southern Protectorate. And when you talk Southern Protectorate, I mean the deeper side, not the western part of Nigeria. If you talk about the Southern Protectorate, you talk about solely the west and the east, until it was divided. Midwest came out before the state creation. So I'm talking about on the eastern side. You talk about Nigeria later becoming a commercial entity, the Royal Niger Company. The Royal Niger Company was established. The Royal Niger Company, which later today it's called Unilever. Many of you may not know. It was the company that the British Empire bought Nigeria from. But in my discussion, I want to look at Ekumeku movement from the eye of cultism and what is happening in campus today, because the role of the Ekumeku movement, like the typical campus cult, it was founded on the back of a resistance to something that is anti-society. But along the line, we will see how both movements, the Ekumeku movement digressed, and that of campus cultism in the Biafran campuses, or today's Nigeria, as you would want to put it. But it is important for us to understand, though they are not giving credit, scholars are not giving credit on writers, and you know what, because of the conspiracy against the people on the eastern bank of the river Niger, and the loss of the civil war, a lot were written to deny the real history and the identity of the people around that territory. It is important for us to understand that this movement, Ekumeku movement, inspired uprising across African colonies. And for over 30 years, this movement gave to the British Empire what they've not seen before, because they brought about in the territories which they later put together as a country and colonized, their usual system of indirect rule, and they ruled the people without they ruled the people easily, collecting their taxes through subordinates. They easily conquered the Fulanis, coming to the northern part of Nigeria, seeing that the Fulanis have taken over the houses and, subjected them as their slave, conquered the Fulani. When the Fulani resisted, it was an easy thing. Beheaded the Sultan of Sokoto, then at Sultan Atahiru, conquered Kano, and the Fulani fell, and the north got into the hand of Colonel Frederick Lugard. and Lagos fell easily. In 1861, when there was squabbles, there was a contest on the throne. You know, the British, they always come in, you know, when two brothers are, my people always say, when two brothers are quarreling, the outsider enjoys the quarrel, comes to exploit it. Dosomo and Kosoko were contesting over the stool of Lagos, and they came in and supported one side, and after they bombarded Lagos to submission and took over Lagos. Putin, the one they are supporting, took over Lagos. Then the Yorubas were fighting wars. When their war ended, they were weak, and that was the war. The Yoruba wars came on as a result of the fall of the Oyo Empire. Oyo had a very strong, sprawling empire. Then when it fell, it was easy. They started fighting among themselves over control, because there was a kingmaker's body called the Oyomesi. It was a very strong body. And so power blocks in the Oyomesi started fighting among themselves. It was during that period they lost Ilorin, because the former military commander of the Oyo Empire, that is the Are Ona Kakanfo, that is in Yoruba land. They normally, even up to this day, any Yoruba they feel that is a very strong warrior, they give him the title. MKO Abiola was their former Are Ona Kakanfo. The current Are Ona Kakanfo, I think, is Gani Adams or so. So the Are Ona Kakanfo as at then betrayed his Oba when he was stationed in today's Ilorin. Ilorin was a military garrison to check the invading Fulani jihadists. And there he sabotaged against the Oba, and the letter fell. Today is history. The Fulani letter took it. So in all these things, the Igbos and Igbo nations had stateless communities. Every town were independent. They traded among themselves. Though they had one issues, the Igbos have always gone on the economic front. They were more interested in those who were seriously on the economic search were interested in the slave trade. And when the era of slavery ended, they went on to be involved in the new trade, which was palm oil, ivory, and normally trade by barter reigned then. So, and all these communities, they were peaceful, they flourished, and they had a system of government which they are akin to. They are not invading each other. Not that the communities did not go to war, but they have ways of settling to amicable resolutions on issues that bring conflict. So the Igbos formed a formidable opponent to the British. The British didn't know how to handle them, and that was why they brought on these warrant chiefs. It's a system, it's a political system that was brought in by the colonial masters, because they didn't know how to handle the Igbos. They don't know their form, and it really they detested the Igbo system, because the Igbos believe in egalitarianism, and the British didn't like that. So they started appointing warrant chiefs and arming them. But during this period, a group arose and that was called the Ekumeku group. And I don't know why anybody who is calling me now, you know that I'm talking and you are still calling. So the Ekumeku movement arose as a result of the British colonial rule. And I've always argued with some of my friends who will try to bring in dichotomy, trying to divide the Igbos, that the Delta Igbo, they are not Igbos. But I always tell them that the first set of Igbos to fight, to breed or show Igbo, the spirit of Igbo nationalism, were the Aniomas. And they were the first Igbos that embraced Western education. Because, you know, in those days, every travel was through the sea. So, and the Aniomas, they live on the shores. From Onitsha, you see Obaru area, Asaba, you know, all those Ubulu, Uku, and all these areas, they're near to the waters. And the British set a company on Asaba. When they tried to set up, they were resisted. Seriously. Communities resisted against that. So when you look at that, it was during this resistance, a group came out called the Ekumeku. And for 30 years, until sometime in 1914, even after 1914, there were still light or brief skirmishes. But there was a big time conflict that the British had to use force of arms, machine guns. At the time, they burned down communities, and nobody talks about this. They don't want to elevate the literature, and that's why I want to bring it on, because there was something that is remarkable about the Igbos during that period, and they don't want to talk about it. It was a guerrilla warfare, because the British were not, and this was a new kind of war against the British Empire, that they lost a lot. They suffered seriously, and they hated the Igbos because of this way they followed them. Opposition against the British was very strong in Anioma land, and a series of war was waged against the British. The Ekumeku, they were well organized, and there was something that their leaders did that held them together, and that was they joined themselves in the secrecy of oath taking. Oath. They took oath because, you know, it is still in Igbo culture today. There are issues in communities and even in families. If family members or community members want to trust each other on a salient thing, maybe that involves economic gain, maybe land or family history, or trying to know, they involve themselves in oath taking. And the Ekumeku, they used that, and that was one of the things that helped them to wage a serious battle against the British. They took oath, effectively using guerrilla tactics, you know, to attack the British. And their forces were drawn from thousands of Anioma communities. Most of them died, you know. They were mowed down in brutal attack by British military power. But they inflicted serious harm on the British. At that time, the British adopting big-time forms of warfare, what we call Scotch Earth policy, destroying everything, their farm, their means of livelihood, in order to subdue them, because it was terrible for the Anioma communities then, because their way of life, the socio-cultural aspect of life, a new religion came on. They were not used to that. And if you read Things Fall Apart, it will give you a bit of the dislocations that happened in Igbo society when Okandiocha Batara, when the white man's religion came in. It made brothers to be against brothers. It eroded their known way of life. certain things, strong aspects of their culture. He went directly against that. And the worst of it, they came with armaments, weapons that killed in hundreds and had no mercy on human life. So with the invasion of communities like Ndoni, I don't know if you know Ndoni, if you know about Ibom and Ndoni, like I said, all these places are riverine areas, through the waters you can navigate all these places. And that's why you see many of these communities that lives travel through the creeks, because during the slave era, they used creeks to transport slavery. And even when the white man came into the hinterland, when they had access, they traveled through boats into the hinterland. Already they've had their people who were working with them. So the Royal Niger Company had fought a series of war in order to station. It has more than 30 stations along that Anioma. You know what I mean? Like branches, what we call today. If you have a company, maybe you have 10 branches across the nation, or 100 branches, or dependent. But this is peacetime. In this period, they had up to 30 branches along that area, because they were still getting into the hinterland. Because during the slave era, they were only their trade stopped at the shores. There were middlemen. Middlemen didn't allow them to come in because middlemen gained a lot from the slave trade. They go and bring out the slaves from the hinterland and handed it over to their white agents on the shores, collecting whatever they are collecting and transferring slaves. So, but the end of slavery brought in the British into, because the British claimed the territories that later became Nigeria at the Berlin Conference. So they used every arsenal, weapons at their disposal to mow down the people, to crush their resistance and defense, to form their own country. That's to form the country the way they want. And that's what we are in today, our generation. And it is important to remember the fight of Ekumeku. So Ekumeku was actually formed as a resistance movement. They fought battles against the British, demobilized the people, and the people trusted them because they were fighting in defense of their fatherland, despite the fact that the British still, in their usual divide and rule system and policy, they harped or cashed in on the vulnerability of certain people, because in every community you will still see divisions among the people. Maybe divisions that was born out of social stratification, what we call social stratification, maybe in sociology or something, like class system. There's always class system. No matter how egalitarian a society is, you will always see Ndane, Mebuku, Emebu, or those, that didn't have privileges. Maybe, one way or the other, and it is in every society. So, Anioma communities in different times in waged a war against the Royal Niger Company. When I say Anioma community, it's Ekumeku in Ibusa in 1898, and then when I say Ibusa, Ibuzo, And in 1904, they were still Owa. In 1906, in these battles, British officers lost their lives. All these things are in British newspapers. Some of the archives are still there. If you research on their libraries, you will see some of them. Even in Ogwashuku's during that period, and Asaba, all these communities, Ubuluku, Iseluku, some of these towns, some of them were renamed. Across hundreds of hamlets and clans, Ekumeku mobilized. And when you look at Ekumeku movement of the Aniomas, because when you talk about this Ekumeku movement, I'm coming to the campus cult of today. You will see that the key reason for their uprising or for their formation or establishment was resistance, to resist British rule in southern Nigeria, particularly the deep southern Nigeria, which is then it was just communities, stateless communities. They will always say the Igbos were involved in stateless communities. There was no kings or things. It doesn't mean that some communities didn't have kings, but they had the way of operation or modus operandi. But the main aim and objective of the Ekumeku was resistance. Then it is important to know that during that period, Ekumeku really it instilled fear into the minds of the British colonialists. They feared Ekumeku because Ekumeku attacked in a guerrilla form. It wasn't a conventional war whereby or you know where your enemies are, or you just bomb them into submission. For instance, what happened during the Biafran War, whereby the British and the Russians, and they gave big armament to the Nigerian Federal Forces, and they came in and bombed towns into submission. In the key tactics of Ekumeku was guerrilla warfare, hit and run. You will never see them. They just come into the British military and economic post, burn it down, and disappear. So all these things you see the militants do. And they were the first to do this guerrilla warfare in the history of modern warfare in Africa. I wouldn't say the world, but it reverberated around Western empires then, and as such, that's one of the reasons the British never trusted the Igbos on giving them power, because the Igbos resisted them. Even after the amalgamation, Ekumeku was still a terror in the minds of the British. And having looked at Ekumeku, the formation, the reason behind the formation of Ekumeku, then you look at the cultism in Nigerian campus. Cultism, there are many cult groups in Nigeria today, but if you talk about campus cults or cultism in Nigeria, you talk about what we call the Magnificent Seven in University College, Ibadan, by the launch of the pirates. The launch of the pirates by Wole Soyinka and his comrades. Although everyone talks about Wole Soyinka, but there were 7 at that time. 7 of them, and pirates called them the Magnificent 7. who started what we know today as a confraternity or cultism in Nigeria, though it has spiraled. But it is important to know that Wole Soyinka and 7 of his colleagues started it. And it is important to know that these 7 cut across. They were Igbos, they were Yorubas in this magnificent 7 in 1952, 53. And why did they start this cultism? It was just a fraternity of idealists, people who had the same mindset, because it was during the time of Sir John Macpherson. He was the Governor General of Nigeria. John Macpherson, the British Governor General, who served as who served when Nigeria was still forming up on the verge of becoming an independent country. Macpherson served between February 5th, 1948 to 1st October 1954. And you know, they were, if you studied government or politics, you must have read about the Macpherson's constitution, his constitution. So during this period, the University College, just like in normal society, it had a privileged class. It had a class society. The privileged in the school, you know, it is always the usual thing, intimidating the less privileged. You know, in the normal campus, it always happens. A group or a school of thought will always believe that they own the campus. They will have access to the best girls, the most beautiful girls. They will try to bully others. Some of them will come from maybe well-to-do, affluent families, or even if they don't come, some will have a means to show off affluent lifestyles and things. So Wole Soyinka and his fellow idealists, 7 of them, they call them Magnificent 7, decided to start a group and call it the Pirates Confraternity in the University College Ibadan, which later became University of Ibadan. And they started it first as a form of resistance to what was going on campus, you know, to go against the system there, because the life at the University College of Ibadan, the showmanship was becoming a tribal thing. Like you do know, Nigeria is a tribal country, likewise many other African countries, because of the creation of the imperialists. So they will always, they made it in the form of, but another day I'll talk about that one. They just packed us together, people that without the same ideology, so that we'll be having conflict over resources and right to lead and things like that. So it happened in the Wole Soyinka, in as much as you will still see, he has a bit of a liberal mentality, because he was jailed during the Biafran Civil War and was accused of siding the Biafrans. He was jailed by the military government of Gowon during that time, and with some Igbo guys at the University College Ibadan. I wouldn't know all their names. They formed the Pirate Confraternity, 7 of them, and from there they started recruiting others, putting up, breaking walls of the dichotomies that was in the social fabric of the university. Whatever tribe you are from, as long as you are doing well, as long as you're a promising student, they welcome you into the pirate confraternity. And the observation of them that wealthy students who were associated with colonial powers had a better living, it's really turned them off, and instead they looked forward to bringing in poorer students who had good manners and who were doing well in academics, who had a promising life in the university, not born out of affluence or having access to colonial authorities. Like I described, it still happens in the university. In the university, you will always have classes of people. So it does. Every campus normally have that. But so on that note, the Pirates Confraternity was born. And from there, they reigned for about 20 years. For about 20 years, they continued. You know, they had an unfettered access to being the only confraternity across the Nigerian universities until it started changing. We started having split groups coming out from them. I hope you do know that these pirates later changed their name to National Association of Sea Dogs. And irrespective of the fact that sometime in 1980, I think 1980s, they stopped university recruitment as an open recruitment in the universities, although it still continued on the ground, but they will always tell you that they don't recruit in universities. When it turned violence, the violence came on when a split group, there was a split from one of them, Bolaji Kario, who later went out to form Buccaneers. And from forming Buccaneers, others came out. So, but in looking at Igbo land, when I say Igbo land, the Biafran territories, there are few that was formed on Biafran territory, though it has a national look. Look. We talk about the pirates was not the sea dogs, the sellers, the one they call the seller that was formed in Port Harcourt. But before then, there was something remarkable. I will come to that happened in 1999, because the regime of Babangida was one of the things that caused Nigerian cultism to get so violent, and had a misplaced priorities or misdirection. But it is important to note that the real reason for the beginning of founding of cultism in campus that are spiraled in other universities across Biafra land, Igbo land, and Nigeria, so to say, was born out of resistance to socio-cultural ills in University College Ibadan. While I'm trying to weave to what I intend to talk about towards the ending, I want you to understand that like Ekumeku, the real origin, the real motive or the essence of cultism in campuses today was born out of resistance in against the ills in our society. But unfortunately, or like Ekumeku movement, the campus cults in today's Nigeria has veered on the wrong path. It veered on the wrong path because of its interwoven nature with the state of Nigeria. Because Nigeria is on a faulty foundation, so it has dragged every institution, every things that are attached to it on the wrong side of development. I don't know if you are getting what I'm trying to explain. So it is important for us to understand that the essence of both cult movements was born out of resistance. Then, if you talk about the typical cult group that was formed in Biafra land, you talk about I think the pirates group, or their exclamation, this thing is the Ahoy in University of Port Harcourt. Then you talk about the one they call Tutu. It was founded in Enugu, the Brotherhood of the Blood. It's also known as Tutu or Black Berets. It became a notorious confraternity. Then when already the cultism in Nigeria spiraled and it became violent groups. Tutu was founded at ISUT, Enugu State University of Science and Technology. There were still other groups founded on Biafran territories, like the Victor Charlie Boys, established by one Augustine Ahiazu when he was Vice Chancellor at the River State University of Science and Technology. There were still other cult groups established in the 90s, many of them Second Son of Satan. Some of them veered into oblivion. Some are still on the ground, because of the clandestine activities. Cultism in Nigeria is like is a taboo in certain society. They wouldn't want to hear about it if you are pointed out as. So most cultists in Nigeria wouldn't want to be known as. Just few, because it's equally a danger as a result of the way it has veered. But it is important for us to know the contradictions between the Ekumeku movements and the cult groups we have today in our land. Because the Ekumeku movement, like I said, among the Anioma community, they were known by indigenes then, and it was like a nationalist group. They were interested more in defending the land, in stamping out the religion, the new religion that is not the way of the people, and in sending the British back for truncating the way of the people. Unlike the later cult groups that was founded in Nigeria, which today is now getting involved in violent activity. Though Some of them are trying to rebrand. I've seen some of them. I've done research on some of them. Although very dangerous, but the leadership, they've tried to present a good face by, for instance, the new black movement, the one we call the Black Axe, have tried to take up the African, Pan-African approach on the international level, because most of these cultists have graduated, and one of the problems in Nigeria today is a result of because the cultism has flourished in Nigeria, because most of the cultists that graduated in the universities later became the leaders and the elites in the Nigerian spectrum. So they want to maintain the camaraderie, they want to maintain some of their known objectives, they want to maintain their essence, their social cohesion, and to a large extent, we've seen some of the ills that came out of campus cultism when the split started. It has been maintained on the body of Nigeria, be it politics and otherwise. You see political thuggery, even armed robbery, and general violence. So looking at Ekumeku, that lasted over 30 years and resisted the British on many fronts, and campus cultism in Nigeria, they are clashing on many fronts. But what I intend to achieve with my thesis is the misplaced priorities of today's cultists, and how they can reenact the spirit of Ekumeku in defending their land, because we've seen there are many cult groups in Nigeria, though it's we call it a national thing, in the sense that we've seen allegiances are cut across. It's cut across the wide spectrum of the Nigerian territory. You can have a black ass member, for instance, but is loyal to the general lord, who is a Yoruba man or an Hausa man. So, and that has rendered them helpless in using some of their method and attitude in confronting the threats that they have, the witness or their people witness in today's old Eastern Nigeria. But generally, in defining cultism, that is where you say it has been the cult that is tying a Yoruba man to an Igbo man, and to an Hausa man, to a TV man and Idoma man, despite the dislocations on things that's called or oath that is binding them to a particular group, still hold them. But those who will define cultism will say that is the people that has religious, philosophical, or spiritual goals. People who share this kind of goals together. But I'm looking at the way cultists in today's Eastern Nigeria, comprising of what we know in Nigerian political parlance as South-South, can stop the threat of herdsmen invasion in their communities if they can adopt the spirit of the Ekumeku. Like I said earlier on, there are many things, there are many scope of knowledge on this cultism. I'm looking at, I'm trying to juxtapose the Ekumeku and the today's secret society, their modus operandi, their aims, how relevant, essence. I started first by their aims. Their aims is just to fight injustice. That was how they started. Unfortunately, today's cultism has spiraled. It's no longer fighting socio-cultural injustice. Rather, the new ones that are springing up are looking at secondary issues. They're looking at secondary issues, from the Buccaneers to the Blackers, MBM, to the Ayes, to the Vikings, to the Mafia, even the ladies have the women have their own, the Black Bra and the daughters of Jezebel. I'll try to get in. The Vikings was founded in Uniport, the Norsemen. That is, they share the same aims of resistance. Then, how relevant? One of the things cult groups always aim to have is relevance. Relevance in the society. We've seen that in Nigeria today. The different cult groups fight over relevance. During the Ekumeku time, they fought for relevance because the British imperialism took their relevance away. They denied them known aspects of their life, things that they used to enjoy, their mode of worship, even that they fought against the introduction of liquor into the society, something that they weren't used to, and they didn't like it. So they fought against it. It is important to note, if I start, there are a few literatures that talked about the Ekumeku movement, and some elders who give accounts when they were still small. Some of them were born, they were still kids. Then they saw the uprising in the early times of Nigeria. Some of them, I read some oral accounts of the Ekumeku rising. But most Anioma towns were involved. Their youths were involved, and they took oath of secrecy to make sure that their plans are not leaked, and they instilled fear into the lives of the British colonists and their agents, district officers, clerks, all those who worked under the colonial administration never found it easy. So it is important for us to understand that the Anioma Igbos, they were the first to be involved in Western education, and apart from the Aro resistance, but Aro resistance was merely the Aro oligarch was involved in the slavery. So when the British ended the slavery, they wanted to continue and they were fought. The long juju of Ukachukwu Bino Babe, the shrine in which they used to perfect the slave trade was bombed. So where you get another big time resistance, but in this time it was a different ball game for the British. It was a guerrilla warfare. Was from the Ekumeku. The Ekumeku was like a hit and run, and you see that's where you see the cult group today learned their acts. The cult group they use the hit and run approach to instill fear into their opponents or do their damage. So they share certain aspect of modus operandi between both. And along the line, like I said, in talking about Nigerian cultism, it's been part of the fabric of society. One of the problems we do have, and that's why you've seen cultism in Nigeria has a spiral, is part of the problems we do have, because many of these cultists now metamorphose. They are the leaders. They've continued in their bad attitude, in rigging, in murder, in pilfering, in even getting involved in anti-developmental strides. There was something that happened in the, I think I was in first year in the university then, at Nnamdi Azikiwe University. On the July of 10th, 1999, there was a serious attack at the Obafemi Awolowo University. There was a big time attack at the OAU in Ile-Ife. And the country was in total, they were shell-shocked, in total shock. OAU had been considered as a very safe university then by parents due to non-involvement in cultism, which people didn't know, or confraternity. In this issue, one cult guy was shot and killed during an attempt on to kidnap someone in 1999. So in this February 1999, student leaders in the school, they organized a campus-wide search and found 8 secret cult members who were stockpiling arms in the school. You know, something that was, students were shocked. They didn't know like this was happening. They just found cult members stockpiling arms. And this discovery enraged the Black Axe confraternity. And because of the discovery, they organized a murder squad. And they went and, that is hacked. Many of you know how cultists kill. They hacked the Students' Union Secretary to death. You know, they just killed him. They hacked him to death while he was in his bed, and they targeted other Students' Union leaders. Do you know what happened? The president of the Students' Union then, he escaped these Black Axe guys who wanted to kill him too, and he went on to demand the resignation of the vice chancellor. Then the vice chancellor was called Wole Omole. He demanded the resignation of the vice chancellor. because the Vice Chancellor was obstructing the fight against cultism in the campus then. And the president of the students, mobilized that the Vice Chancellor must be captured and the students must deal with him. And they had to abduct the Vice Chancellor's wife. Wole Omole's wife was abducted. And it was like a ransom from the students demanding for his surrender. And preceding this, I'll tell you a bit of what happened during the Babangida era. And during this period, it was 1999. Many of you who were in the university during that period will remember that there was a time in the university that every university organized a renunciation program for all university. The vice chancellors of every university, it was a federal government policy then. They directed the NUC, National University Commission, directed all universities to embark on renunciation program that cultists who renounced will be pardoned and nothing. They will not face the Nigerian criminal code law also. So, and it took the Nigerian Minister of Education to later dismiss the Vice Chancellor, who was sponsoring, who provided a cover for the cultists in OAU then, because it later started happening across universities and institutions in which university administrators used cultists to hunt and to deal with student activists who demanded accountability and a transparent administration in university. It was a big issue in 1999, and it helped to cleanse the university administration of cultism, though it still continued, but not with the connivance of university administrators. And later, many universities started forming groups called the anti-cult squad. The anti-cult squad helped the university administrators to fight against cultism. Even up to this day, I don't know if it's still there. The anti-cult groups are in most federal and state universities fighting cultism. So, to buttress it more, the Ekumeku group had their intentions maintained, though they were finally defeated. But the essence of the establishment, they maintained it, continued being a terror to the British imperialists, unlike today's cultists who initially, or ab initio, it was formed as a way of resisting the tribal and social-cultural dichotomy in universities, but later now became a terror in the society, because during the Babangida era, many cult groups were founded. During the Babangida era, he did a lot to support cult groups, because it was used to intimidate was used to intimidate his opponents. And if you remember, there was a time Wole Soyinka was appointed. Was it when this was founded? Was it Road Safety Corps? Yeah, the Road Safety Corps. When it was founded, Wole Soyinka was in charge. I think so, and it became a ground for many pirates. We know that in Nigerian society, though they don't talk about it, but it's fact, and that has kept that pattern going on. You see, maybe a governor or a minister who was a former cultist in a particular group getting involved in being appointed to a high position, and part of the recruitment criteria will be being member of maybe his cult group when he was in a university also. And that brought schisms. It brought problems in the Nigerian society. Like I said, Pirates was formed in 1952. It had 2 decades. It reigned without challenge and spread across the few universities in Nigeria then until 1972, when Bolaji Kariu founded the Buccaneers as a result of he was expelled from the Pirates. According to them, they say for failing to meet the expected standard. So he founded his own, and from then, Kariu founded the Buccaneers Confraternity, and he went as far to naming it the National Association of Sea Lords. And whereas the pirates named their own Sea Dogs. And it was from here many others sprang up. The major impetus was for the creation of many cult groups, where power tussle, the normal power tussle in groups, and some people who wanted to belong but they were not allowed went on and formed their own, and the battle on supremacy in campuses, came on. The battle no longer became an intellectual battle or competition. It spiraled into violence, whereby the fight for territory, the fight over control of who is who, fight over the student union, who will control the mouthpiece of the students, fight over beautiful girls on campus, social issues. And along the line, the administrations exploited the dichotomy and the rivalry in school administration. I just talked about the Wale Omole issue in OAU that warranted the 1999 renunciation of cultism in Nigeria across Nigerian university. I remember I was in first year, so, and a program was held in the assembly of every universities. The vice chancellor was with religious leaders in school. They were all called cultists too. It was just a rehearse. It was a cosmetic thing, because after that, the Nigerian way, they still siphoned money from that program, and cultism still continued. It continued in the sense that during elections, you see politicians will come in and recruit cultists who are going to shoot for them, who are going to snatch ballot boxes for them, who are going to beat up party agents or intimidate voters, or who are going to work with paid security agents. Some work as espionages in enemy or moles in enemy campaigns or territory and things like that. It's still of violence at the moment. So, juxtaposing both, you see that two of them, in as much as it had similarities, but the essence of it, the current day cultists, campus cultists, have veered off the path. They have their violence. They are meting out their violence on the wrong people. You will see even cultists serving as protectors of those who are against the society. We've seen what is happening in Nigeria today. Many of these leaders, so-called leaders, were cultists during the days. And you see, their comrades are not ready to go against them because of the spirit of camaraderie, and should I say the oath they took, and all. Also, instead, what triggered the establishment of the pirates by the Magnificent Seven at the University College of Ibadan. They are now doing worse than that, because Wole Soyinka and his colleagues and his fellow idealists founded it in order to check the growing social inequalities in campus, to encourage performance, to encourage competition, positive competition, to give sense of belonging to rich students who came to the university. Not as a result of the depth of their pockets, but as a result of what they can offer to the society. So it is important in juxtaposing these two movements, the Ekumeku movement and the current cult groups in Nigeria, or confraternity in Nigeria groups, that the Ekumeku movement was involved in the role, the centric role in which they were created, and that is to resist the imperialism, to resist the cultural problems that the British brought into their society, to resist the religion, the foreign religion that have erased their own way of worship, to resist the new way of thoughts and dislocations of their life by the British. They fought it standstill, introduced something that the British feared, and the British history and politics, and those who are the hem of affairs of Britain up to today, they know that the black man is capable of doing, especially those from that Biafran territory. They are afraid of such, because the Anioma people in Ekumeku, they stood up against the British. They never cared, took the oath of secrecy, mobilized their young boys, and went on, and in a guerrilla tactics, kept destroying, hit and run, kept the British imperialists restless. In the newspapers in London, it was reports of deaths of their adventurers and their colonial officers they brought in. Many of them, they failed to report it so that they wouldn't give credit to the Ekumeku movement. So if you look at that and juxtapose it with the current confraternity in Nigeria, you will see that today's cultists are not doing anything. Instead, they are just involved in misplaced priorities, looking at, pursuing something that is not helpful to the society. Instead, they are a tool in the misdirection of the society. We've seen that they've veered off the path of their foundation, even not living to the actual aims and objectives of what they were created. Because if you look at the new black movement, for instance, the Black Axe is a popular cult group in Nigeria. But if you look at their message, their mission, it's a Pan-African statement. It's a Pan-African statement. But unfortunately, you see that their activities in the campus go against their aims and objectives. But we've seen that many of their alumni try to recreate that. They try to recreate that by leaving behind those antecedents as students or as college teenagers, because you always say when you were a young person, you may be involved in frivolous activities that later you will live as part of the things that should be left on your path to adulthood or things like that. But it is important to look for them to look behind and check deep on the essence of founding the group, because most of this group were founded on the back of resistance to ills in the society. They weren't founded on killing each other or inflicting mayhem on the society. They were created on the back of restoring the dignity of man. But unfortunately, it is not happening. And as such, it's regrettable because the Ekumeku patterns and the Ekumeku movement gave birth to series of ideas that the current cult groups use. But unfortunately, they're not making use of it in a positive way or progressive direction for the betterment of the society. So it is important for us to take a sober reflection, and in view of what people of southern Nigeria, particularly those in the territories of Biafra, are thinking about their sleepless nights on their women that are being raped in farms, their girls that are being molested and intimidated. Some people we've seen a few days ago, an old man about 60-something years or 70 was killed in Agua, in Uguta. I know Agua. I don't know the particular part of Agua, if it is Obudi Agua or Mbala Agua, was killed by a Fulani headsman. We have cultists, but they're not doing the needful. Where, if it were during the days of the Ekumeku group, these things are a minor issue. The British had machine guns, they mowed down the Ekumeku, but the Ekumeku never feared them. They kept raiding on Royal Niger Company outlets across their land, making sure that anything called Igbo in the mind of the British colonists was like fear. These people, they don't want to have anything to do with these people. These people don't want to be led. And you know the British, so they decided that it will arms. It will be total annihilation of the Ekumeku group. And young men across the Anioma communities were lost in their hundreds during this movement, during this era. So when the Royal Niger Company attempted to establish its authority in the Asaba hinterland in the twilight of the 19th century, around the 1880s, you know, existing towns in that area, they provided this foundation in which the Ekumeku resistance movement sprang up. And from 1900s, the area under direct administration of the British, you know, they lived in fear of the Ekumeku, because the Ekumeku never wanted the British to have a foothold. Unfortunately, the British adopted brutal force because they were gaining a lot from the new trade of palm oil, rubber, and ivory, and it was the end of slavery. So they wanted to mop up that area and establish British authority, which they later did after when they amalgamated the northern and southern protectorate. So it was in the Anioma area that formed a base in which the British now finally got hold of what we know previously as Eastern Nigeria. So all these were all these things the British were involved in. It was considered taboo by the Anioma people, and young men across communities now formed the Ekumeku. Like I said, this situation provoked the consolidation, you know, of the Ekumeku forces, and it galvanized the movement seriously. And between 1902 to 1910, the Ekumeku offered a courageous and a prolonged resistance to British rule, especially into the Asaba hinterland, because from Asaba, where they stationed their main Royal Niger office, they now moved in. That's why you see Asaba Onitsha. A settlement was now built on Onitsha, a commercial settlement, but their office was in Asaba. So, in spite of all the machineries of power and arms brought in by the British, the Ekumeku wasn't afraid because they had their oath of secrecy, and they marched on the British and dealt with them. Over 30 years, they fought a guerrilla battle against the British. So, finally, when you are looking at these two cult movement, you will see that the current state of cultism in Nigeria is not doing justice to what we want. And I pray that they can, especially those from the Biafran land, will begin to look at mobilizing in the spirit of Ekumeku to defend their fatherland, because this is why there are cult groups. Cult group is not to belong in a cult group is not a bad thing. Cultism is not really. It all depends on what is involved and the aims and objective. To belong to a cult group, it's not. While cultists in Nigeria hide or they don't want to, because they have veered off the path. They've all veered off the path. They're not doing the good things. They are anti-society. They are doing all sorts of wrong things. But if they are involved in good things, it's just like a club, social club. People are proud to be in a social club. But when the aims and objective of that club is now something that the society detests, it becomes a secret cult. It becomes a secret cult. And that was why, you see, we have anti-cult groups in institutions, universities, and colleges of education. And you see that even the cult groups has now gotten into our communities. They are now recruiting. If you go to oil producing areas, you will see what I'm telling you. The cult groups have they've recruited along the line. They are now fighting the battle. The battles between cult groups in campus have now shifted base. They've now shifted base. If you go to a place like Eboma, I grew up in Eboma, though that was when I did my primary school in Maho. And there is Eboma, I think, produces about 13% of Nigeria oil. But due to the issue with Nigeria, they divided Eboma into two and put in the majority of them in Imo State. They have two or three of their brothers, kith and kin, in River State. I think Okuzi Aga in River State. Then you have the majority of Ete Ikurumahu, Obiabo, Abcheke. All these ones are in Imo State. And that is why you see an Eboma person, for instance, Okiro, for the former Inspector General of Police, Okiro is from Eboma. He is from Imo State, but he became Inspector General of Police in Nigeria as a reverse man from South. These are the things that we suffer in Nigeria. The dichotomy, they've tried to divide us a lot. These things Ekumeku saw coming, and that was why they fought tooth and nail to stop the British from establishing, because the British they've done damage to our land. They did damage to our land. The British started it, and the people they gave power have continued since the end of the Civil War. Even before the Civil War, they were doing, they did terrible things. And generations have continued. You will see generations, because of what they are fed. Because when you have a child, whatever you tell your child is what your child is going to believe. Unless your child now grows up and begin to read and study and research, then you see them finding the truth. But already you see damage could be done. You see brothers killing brothers. You see people not knowing their kith and kin because of the lies that have been told. Ekumeku saw these things and decided to wage a guerrilla battle against the British, because they know that you people have come to deceive our people. You people have come with your religion. You people have come with your lies. You people have come with your liquor. You people have come with your falsehood to deceive our people, we will know that in the next 100 years, our people will never remain the same. And that is what we are seeing today. We will never remain the same. You will see, they are now talking about Port Harcourt, that is Iguacha. Port Harcourt, named after a British man. Port Harcourt was named in the early 20th century by Lugard. It was the port, a port they just built new to export their cash crops during the First World War and Second World War, because their colonial territories played a very important role during their wars. The wars the Europeans were fighting against themselves. We provided soldiers, we provided raw materials to oil the industrial machines, and they built a new port on the closest land to the Atlantic Ocean, and that was at Iguacha. They named this new port after the Secretary of Colonial Territories. The Secretary of Colonial Territories, Harcourt. His name is Harcourt. You can check it. Google it. You still see Harcourt streets in different countries that the British colonized. Even if you come to Dublin, we have a Harcourt Street. It's a popular street in Dublin. That was the man. He was, you know what it means now. You were sent, Colonel Frederick Lugard was sent, to mop up Nigeria. He first of all came to northern Nigeria and secured that place for Her Britannic Majesty Queen Victoria. 1903, defeated the Fulanis, established an office in Lokoja. And from there, he saw that the British were losing. Instead of getting money, they were spending money to run administration in that area. So they saw that the South was rich because the bulk of the slaves, the blacks you are seeing all across the world, came from the Bight of Biafra, which was renamed Bight of Bonny. It was Bight of Biafra because the slaves from that area were very energetic. They were promising for the slave owners, and they were very costly. But they had a risk. They commit suicide. They were rebellious, and so but they helped to build the new world. And a port later was built in Port Harcourt, in Iguacha, and they named the new port Port Harcourt. Harcourt is an English name. Harcourt, that is Port Harcourt. That is why the name is Port Harcourt. The real name of the place is Iguacha, and they're now telling the indigenes that they're not Igbos. Whereas they are Igbos. When they speak Igbo, you will still hear Igbos. It's just like telling somebody who is from Eboma, like I speak Eboma now. And Igbos will always say, Igbo na su n'olu n'olu. There are deep Eboma I will speak. You may not understand. But if you listen attentively, you will still pick words. Just like the way an Owerri man will speak. And if you speak deep Owerri, you may not understand him fully. But if you are attentive, very attentive, you will still pick. Because this is Igbo. The same with Eboma. Nsupuni Eboma. Ashka equal ije alo ifem lepu. Although So every dialect, every people have dialect. Just like where I live in Ireland, the people of Dublin have a different dialect from Cork. All these things. And Ekumeku saw these things when the British came and they attacked. This is why the cult groups in our land can do a lot, to be a force of reckoning in the social, cultural, political, and economic rehabilitation of our land. It's not about being a cultist, bragging in campuses, raping girls, killing over small money, over 5,000 naira, 10,000 naira. They'll just take somebody's life. Over asking girls out, you'll hack your fellow students to death, involved in misplaced priorities. These things, and the bad society, some of them, they're left to carry on these activities, and many now grow and get into top echelons of the administration. And this is why you see, any evil is bad. During the IBB time, IBB encouraged campus cultism. He used campus cults groups to attack academic staff union of university officials also who were against him. During IBB time, student leaders emerged. They were against his regime because he didn't want to hand over. They named him the Maradona of Nigerian politics. He didn't want to ensure transition to civil rule. And as such, he mobilized cult groups and cultists across universities and paid them to attack voices of reason and vox populis in campuses. So in conclusion, you see that unlike Ekumeku, today's cultists, they're driving the society. And that is why our society is at its lowest ebb. They are driving the society in Nigeria. They've refused to rehabilitate themselves. And that's why you see the elections, there's violence, there's intimidation. Those, the reasons the Magnificent Seven saw in establishing pirates are not there. The New Black Movement, their motto of Pan-Africanism, they are not keeping to it. And many of the splinter groups that came out of pirates and buccaneers are not living up to expectation. And that is why you see the society. Is this what we want in the Biafra land? Imagine initiation. Initiation is no longer a test of intellect. Because a normal cult group in campus will be a test of intellect. Bright students. Now they're now getting involved in the kind of rough endurance text. Endurance text that will test your physical. I know endurance tests, there are progressive ones, but there are a lot of retrogressive ones. You see big fights, the massive beatings, even kidnap and robbery. They will send you on a mission to kidnap or rob someone. Some are even shot to death. Even you see rapes during initiations. We've seen the Black Bra and Daughters of Jezebel, the women, things like that. And as such, my dear listeners, I think we've seen how we have gone so far in this edition of my Liberation Gospel, the Ekumeku movement and versus campus cultism in contemporary Igbo land or Biafra land. It is important for us to look at the reasons in which Ekumeku was established, their modus operandi, which, yes, they taught the world a lot. It is important for you to even know that uprisings like the Mau Mau in Kenya took cue from the Ekumeku. They learnt a lot from Ekumeku because the British never seen this kind of thing before, and up to this day, they still fear the people called Igbos. No one want to talk about that. They don't give credit to the Ekumeku, but historians like me do know that the Ekumeku, the world learned the art of guerrilla warfare from groups like the Ekumeku. Even this Niger Delta militants, or hit and run, because your enemy has the bigger weapons, you know. So when you hit him or her, you run. It's a part of warfare that the Ekumeku puts in the annals of warfare history, and we must not fail to give them credit. I thank you for listening to me today. I want you to spread this if you enjoyed the talk, and subsequently I'll be looking at other topics you check out on my wall. I think by weekend I should be talking about why the Igbo land is not a landlocked place. A lot of people, we have to change these settings, the conspiracy theories that many have swallowed hook, line, and sinker. We must change the narrative because they are all bunkum and lies. We have the facts, and geographically you will see it. I'm going to put a sword to that conspiracy theory and fallacy, hopefully by weekend. Thank you for listening to me. You can check the materials on Ekumeku, but for want of time, I may not talk about their pieces and oral, a lot of things, but it is important. The Ekumeku is very, very important in the history of warfare. They don't give credit because it's a black movement, but it inspired the art of guerrilla warfare. Thank you, and God bless you.
Nazu mara na ala bekee ndị na-enwe nne na nna